Everybody's got to live someplace. Everyone needs someplace to be. A habitat's a habit with the creatures of the world. Each has its own commune.
Good morning, girls. Hi, Justin. Good morning, Sean. Hi, have a seat. Well, looks like everybody's here. And since it's a cool morning, we all have hats and coats. That's great. Now, later it'll warm up and we can take those off. Does everybody know what we're going to do today?
We're going to visit another habitat.
That's right. And the habitat we're going to visit today is actually a whole community.
Is the habitat far away?
Nope. We're just going around to the back of the house.
The habitat's in our own backyard? In our own neighborhood?
That's right. The things we're going to look at today are things that you can find in your own yard, or in a park, or in your schoolyard. See, a lot of organisms can survive, even with people around, just so they have the things they need. Come on, let's go. All right, now we're ready to start exploring our backyard habitat. Let's all get up together here. Now, the thing to do is to stand quietly and look around carefully. Let's see how many different neighbors we have.
There's a cardinal.
That's right, Justin. That's a male cardinal. He's bright red.
There's another one. It's kind of brown.
Good, Mandy. That's a female cardinal. Probably his mate.
There's a squirrel. It came out of the tree. Is that his nest up there?
Yep. Squirrels build their nests in trees. They kind of look like big birds' nests.
There's some blue jays. Yeah, they sure are pretty.
They sure are. See that bird on the chimney next door? That's a mockingbird. It can imitate the sound of almost any other bird. Did you know that? And take a look at that one on the limb over there.
Yeah.
That's a goldfinch.
Look, there's a pretty bluebird.
That's right, and that's his name, too. That's a bluebird.
Look at that bird with a kind of red front. Is it a robin?
Yep, that's a robin, all right.
Do all these birds really live around here?
Well, most of them do, so they really are your neighbors. Now, why do you suppose birds and squirrels live in trees?
Well, maybe they feel safer there. Yeah, it's harder for the other animals to climb up in the trees and get them.
That's right, and there's another reason, too. Take a look at this old bird's nest. Okay, everybody can see that? And then look at that squirrel's nest up in the tree up there. Now, it's a lot bigger, but they're both made from small branches and leaves. So, what's another reason why trees are a good place for birds and squirrels to live?
Because there's lots of twigs and leaves to build nests with.
Yes, and there's another very important reason, too. Come on, let's take a close look at the leaves and branches of a tree.
What are these holes in the leaves? I bet insects are eating the leaves.
That's right, and birds eat the insects. So you see, in a habitat, organisms live together and depend on each other. Now, because they live together and need each other, we can call this a community. And we call that depending on one another interdependence.
Interdependence?
Yep. Now, we've been looking at some examples of interdependence. Birds and squirrels depend on the trees for food and shelter. Okay, I've got an assignment for 3 of you. Let's see, Terry and Sean and Mandy. You'll be my research team, okay?
Okay.
All right. Okay. Now, here's what I want you to do. I want you to search the backyard and try to find some of the foods that our backyard neighbors would eat, okay? Let's see what we can find. It'll be pretty interesting. Let's see what they come up with.
How about these berries, Jim?
That's a good selection, Sean. You know, birds love to eat these kind of berries.
Jim, I found these acorns under a tree. I know squirrels like to eat them. Boy, I bet birds would like these pretty blueberries.
I'll bet they would. So now we know why the trees in your backyard make such a good habitat for other organisms, why other organisms depend on trees. Why are trees good habitats for many different organisms? They provide shelter. They provide building materials. They provide food.
Mammals, birds, insects too need food and shelter just like you. All the things they need are in the tree. It's a small community.
Now, some insects depend on trees for both shelter and food. See the big bumps on these branches? We call them galls.
What's inside them?
Well, they contain the eggs of an insect. Now, when the insects come out of the gall, they'll eat the leaf. It's right there waiting for them. Oh, take a look at this. This is an insect larva, a baby insect.
That's a caterpillar.
That's right. A caterpillar is one kind of larva. You see, he eats leaves to make himself fat and healthy. Then he wraps himself up in a leaf and becomes what we call a pupa. And do you know what he'll be when he comes out of that leaf?
A butterfly?
Right, a butterfly or a moth, depending on what kind of pupa it is. Now, other insects make holes in a tree and get right inside. So you see, the insects depend on the tree for food and shelter.
Look at that bird pecking at the tree. It's a woodpecker.
Hey, you're right. See, the woodpecker uses his pointed beak to peck into the bark and find those little insects that have gotten inside. He's actually helping the tree stay healthy by eating the insects that are eating the tree. The other birds help the trees too by eating insects that eat their leaves.
Trees help the birds and birds help the trees.
That's right. That's what we mean by interdependence. One organism helps the other, even though it doesn't do it on purpose. Okay, now let's take another look at the backyard.
Hey, what's that?
Well, I'll be. That's an opossum. They usually come out at night. We must have disturbed its home. See, bushes and tall plants make a great place for small animals like rabbits, raccoons, and field mice and opossums to live. They're night feeders and they come out at night. Bushes and tall plants like these, well, they provide them with shelter and food.
What do you mean food?
See these seeds? These are an important food for a lot of small animals. Some birds, like cardinals, love to eat seeds. So these plants are helping the animals, just like the trees do.
Do animals help the plants?
They sure do. They spread the seeds. See, a lot of times birds will drop seeds or berries, squirrels will drop acorns, and other seeds are spread by other organisms, like you.
Us?
Sure. See those seeds stuck to your clothes? They get stuck to other organisms too, and the seeds are spread. So the plants help feed some animals, and some animals help spread the plants. That's what we mean by interdependence. Everything works together in the habitat. But let's stop for a minute and answer a question. How do animals help trees and other plants? Some animals spread plant seeds. Some animals eat insects which harm plants.
Each plant gets what it needs. Animals help spread the seeds and eat the insects living in the tree. It's a small community.
Okay, now it's time to take another look around the backyard. But this time, let's look down and see what's on the ground and in the grass.
Look, there's a big turtle.
That's right, that's a box turtle. He's on his way down to the stream. He eats the insects down there.
Here's a grasshopper.
Grasshoppers eat plant leaves, and birds eat grasshoppers.
There sure are a lot of insects.
Yes, there are plenty of insects in almost every habitat. You know, of all the things in the world, there are more insects than anything else. Now, let's move these leaves aside and see what we can find in the soil.
Look, here's a worm.
Earthworms are very important in the habitat. See, they tunnel through the ground, letting in air and water, and that helps the plants grow. That's another way that animals help the plants.
And then the insects and other animals eat the plants.
Yep, that's the kind of interdependence we find in communities.
Sometimes I see robins with worms in their mouths. They eat them. I see worms mostly on rainy days. Why's that?
Well, the water fills up the air spaces in the ground, so the worms have to come up out of the ground so they won't drown.
Ooh, there's a spider on the wall.
Well, where there are lots of insects, you're sure to find spiders because they eat them.
Aren't spiders insects?
No, spiders are arachnids. There's a difference.
Do spiders bite people?
Well, sometimes the bite of the black widow and brown recluse can be dangerous to people too, so you have to be careful about them.
Look at that daddy long legs. Is it a spider?
Well, it's an arachnid. It's related to spiders.
There sure are a lot of things living in the neighborhood.
There sure are. Now let's see if we can find some other places where creatures might live in the backyard. Maybe closer to the house.
Look, I found a frog by the house.
Good find, Jason. He's probably looking for insects to eat.
Hey, I found a snake.
You're right. It's a little garden snake.
Will it bite?
Oh, no, they don't bite. They're harmless to people. But you know, they help the garden because they eat a lot of the small garden pests. So let's put it back where we found it. You kids are great researchers. The organisms you found today are important to the neighborhood. And now, for your last assignment, name all the organisms you might find in your backyard.
Mammals and birds and trees need each other. We can see all the neighbors in the small community live interdependently.
And all the organisms in the habitat depend on each other. Now, what do you think you could do to make the backyard an even better habitat?
We could put in a bird feeder.
Good idea. Bird feeders and bird houses can be a lot of fun, and birds help the whole habitat. When you know what the different birds eat, then you can put out the kind of food that will attract them. Well, it's fall now, but in the summertime you can plant gardens that will not only make your home look nicer, but will provide food and shelter for different organisms, and that will attract more organisms to the community. Flowers have pollen for bees, and some have nectar for hummingbirds. Trees and shrubs provide shelter for birds, who will help get rid of annoying mosquitoes.
Gosh, we have a lot of neighbors I never even knew about.
And they all depend on each other, too, for food, for shelter, for water, nest building materials, and places to hide from their enemies. Keep watching for hidden neighbors. There's lots of them in your backyard, too.
Birds and bees, plants and trees, worms and animals live here in our neighborhood. Working together, they have all they need in a habitat that's good. Everybody's got to live someplace. Everyone needs someplace to be. A habitat's a habit with the creatures of the world. Each has its own community.